You're listening to a Mel and Kim Productions podcast.
Renee Gracie.
Renee Gracie.
And Renee Gracie.
Father Renee Gracie.
Renee Gracie.
Renee Gracie.
Hello and welcome to In the Backseat with me, Renee Gracie. Join me on this captivating ride as I speak to fascinating people who have dared to take unconventional roads to success. Let's buckle up and take the ride together. Welcome to In the Backseat. Today's lovely guest, we have Brihony Dawson. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me, Renee.
Thanks for joining me. I'm really excited. We were just having a little chat. We're going to have a good chat, I think, because we were already chatting off air.
We've literally chatted. We've done a group project together.
Yep.
We've put together a new whiteboard.
Yep.
So we're all pretty much besties from here now.
We're ready to go. Really excited to talk to you for many reasons, but one thing that we touched on actually off air was that you say yes to everything.
Yes.
And you do everything. So I don't even think I'm going to try and rattle off all of the things that you have achieved and accomplished and attempted or given a go to actually doing.
Yep.
Talk us through what you do and some of the greatest moments of your career.
Wow. That's
Introduce yourself.
Yeah.
Talk yourself up. Pump your tires,
hello.
please.
Is this my camera? Hello, everyone. Brihony Dawson here. Yeah, I mean, my career came from like so many different places. Somebody said to me recently, a mentor of mine, she was like, you're kind of like Slumdog Millionaire. She's like, you learnt all of this stuff through fate, and every single thing that you have learnt from all of the jobs, because I'm a multi-job person in my life.
Yeah.
You've learnt something from all of those things, and they're perfectly slotted in because you have all of this information.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah,
that excites me because I feel like I can resonate with that a lot. So that's
Right.
why it's like I'm a yes person too.
Yeah.
And I've done everything and
Yeah.
I'll give everything a go once. And if I like it, I'll keep doing it kind
Yeah.
of thing. So I say yes at least once to give it a try, and you learn as much as you can. And then all of a sudden you don't realize what you've learned until you're applying it somewhere else. And you're
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Oh, fuck, I learned that when I did that. Oh, that's
But
cool.
also I think that, you know, we're told from early on to like pick something, stick at it and, you know, go forth and complete it and then stay in that. And I think that when you try a lot of different things, you often feel like you don't fit anywhere.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people going past you who have been hyper-focused on certain things and experienced success. You know, I always thought I had to do everything before I was 30.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, my God, I didn't fucking know anything before I was 30. And I'm like, you idiot.
Yeah. But we get made to believe that there's like a time restraint on doing things, 100%.
I'm like, bitch, I'm just getting started.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
So, yeah, I think one of the biggest things in my career was basically being like desperately unhappy in my mid-20s. I really was suffering from all sorts of things. And I was sitting in my therapist's office. I was having a particularly rough day and she wasn't going to let me leave. She didn't trust that I wouldn't hurt myself.
Wow.
And she was like, look, you can either stay here for the day or you can go sit in the emergency at the Alfred Hospital. And I was like, well, I'm not going to go fucking sit in an emergency.
Yeah.
So I sort of sat there and my boss was calling me and she sort of like walked past and I was like, she's like, you can answer the phone. I was like, no, I don't fucking care about that job and blah, blah, blah. Like full in my 20s and hating everything.
Yep.
And she was like, well, if money wasn't an issue, what would you be doing? Like if you just went and did the thing that you were put on this earth to do, what would you be? And I was like, I'd literally never even thought about that in my entire life. And I was like, I'd be a singer in a band. And she was like, no, but like
What would you really do?
Like a real job. And I was like, no. And just having that thought in my body had like sparked something in me that I had not felt in my life before.
Yeah, wow.
And it's literally been burning ever since because that day I left her office and I quit my job.
Yeah.
And I put my house on the market.
Wow.
And I called one of my clients who I knew played guitar and I was like, do you want to start a band? And she was like, yep. And I was like, great. And we had our first gig 2 weeks later at the Vineyard at like an open mic night. And
Wow.
I've never looked back. I've toured off my own bat like America, Europe twice. You know, I've not achieved the things that I thought that I was going to achieve, but I've achieved so much that then has led me to so many other amazing prospects.
That's amazing. And pretty quick turnaround. Like you obviously you're like, right, the fire was burning.
Yeah.
You're like, I literally am doing this. And within 2 weeks, you're
That's pretty much me to a T.
Yeah,
though.
okay.
It's like once I decide on something, I'm like, that's it. Where are all my resources? And I pull them in and I'm like, execute.
Yeah. So to get to that point, though, you must have known that you were obviously quite talented.
No. So I wasn't a singer at the time.
Oh. I was going to say, were you like singing in the shower and like your neighbours were complimenting you on how good you were? Like how did that, you must have known.
I had sung like a little bit of karaoke. I'd been in a High School Musical, but in like a non-singing part.
Yeah, okay.
It was just something that I really loved doing. And even now I don't really call myself a singer. I call myself an entertainer.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because if I compared my singing voice to like actual singers, I probably wouldn't get out of bed in the morning. But as an entertainer, there's so much to offer.
But there also, in my opinion, there is a difference between someone who can sing and entertain. Because they're two different things. Because you can be a singer, but you can't be an entertainer, and you can't do concerts and you can't do gigs.
Yeah.
You can just release records and tracks and stuff.
100%.
So I feel
I've been on stage with some of the people with the best voices, and on stage it feels like they're a black hole sucking the energy out of the whole thing because they don't know how to give. Yeah. You know?
So to be able to do both of those is obviously a talent in itself.
It's been I'm very talented. Yeah.
I think it really is. Like I'm not a singer at all, but I love music.
Yeah.
And I've been to places and I've been around people who love music, and I'm always willing to go to different bands, different gigs and different things to experience it. And I have been to some where I've just literally wanted to shrivel up into my own shell and disappeared. I had secondhand embarrassment from being there for the person who was on stage. And then there's other people, and I've been to other concerts and I've just been blown away, and I'm like, holy shit, I had no idea this person was as good as what. Like Pink, I remember Pink being one of like, I'm like, holy shit, she is like, it blew my mind because I'm like, she isn't just a singer. She can like command a whole crowd, and it was like mind blowing. So I feel like to do both is great. And I feel like if you can entertain and sing, it's like, yeah, you've got it all.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Those amazing gigs like your Pink and Foo Fighters are one of my favorite bands. Sometimes I'm like, I get so affected and emotional by the music that sometimes it's too much for me to go. Prince, as my tattoo will show you, I'm a massive fan of Prince, and I got to see him play at the Arts Centre with only like 2,500 people, like one of the last shows he played. He passed away, I think, like 2 weeks later.
Yeah, right.
And I literally just sat in the audience and cried like literally the whole time. Yeah. It was just like I was a blubbering mess.
And then once he passed, it probably made that even more, like those moments more surreal.
Oh, yeah. And I just felt so lucky and grateful that I got to experience him in such an intimate setting.
Yeah, no, I get it completely. Yeah. And then you touched on what that opportunity, obviously the singing, the performing, the entertaining had then led on to. Talk us through that now and what you do now.
Yeah, so I sort of became a singer and then more MC, entertaining, and I do, a lot of like corporate and events and that kind of thing. And then I was at an event at the MCG one day hosting, and there was a producer from Channel 10 there, and like within a couple of weeks I'd had a call to ask if I wanted to host the challenge in Australia. They were releasing it. It's a massive show in the US. And within a couple of months then I was in Argentina filming the show on network TV, and it was incredible. The show didn't go too well. Sorry guys. The show didn't go too well, but it was incredible.
I heard the host was great though.
The host was bloody fantastic.
What's that like, doing TV gigs? Obviously you've performed and you've done singing and you've been in gigs and you've sort of been centre of attention as such. Yeah. But shifting that into more of a TV background and environment, what's that difference like?
Yeah, it was interesting. We hold TV and the people on it in such, yes, high esteem, but also like untouchable. We don't often see them as human. You know, they're always through the screen. And I just remember going, oh, everyone's just like us.
Yeah.
You know, and I found that I was really able to like connect with people, and also I was given space to really be my true authentic self as well,
Which is great.
Yeah, it was honestly one of the best experiences and one of the best crews that I've ever worked with. Everyone was so generous and giving. And I said to our producer from Channel 10, I was like, this has been amazing. Like, is everything like this? He's like, no, this is like an anomaly. I'm having the best time and normally it's shit. Yeah. So
you got lucky.
Yeah, I got really lucky and I'm really grateful for that experience.
What were the challenges with all of that, if there were any? Obviously everything was so good, but what are the sort of challenges with those sorts of roles that maybe you didn't know about prior to doing it?
I think it's for me in terms of like actual career, it's about like keeping that momentum and having this amazing thing, but not having that mindset that it's going to last forever.
Yeah.
Because, you know, everything passes. The good times pass and the bad times pass.
Yep.
And so that's something that you really have to take a hold of and not let it beat you down, and then just keep going.
Yep.
You need to be relentless in the pursuit of your dreams.
Yeah, definitely. What was life like growing up for you? We're talking off air about where you grew up. Talk us through that. I want to know the period of time when you said you sort of got to your 20s and you were really down in the dumps and you sort of got to that therapy session.
Yeah.
Talk us through that journey and that gap that sort of led you to that moment.
So I grew up in Frankston. I had a pretty happy life there. Like we didn't have much, but my dad was an alcoholic, and eventually he just drank himself to death.
Oh wow!
And so I was I think it was like almost 15 when we got the phone call.
Wow!
And it just destroyed me. I've got an older brother, and he was sort of my mum's and I was my dad's, and we were very similar. And I mean, I never saw my dad drink. Like, he was never drunk around us. But there was a lot of nights on the phone where he was drunk, and I would sit with him for hours and hours on the phone, and just it absolutely destroyed my world. And at 15, when you're trying to develop as a human being,
absolutely,
and then just dealing with grief is an absolute beast that will knock you when you're down. It'll come out of the blue when you think you're just having the best time, and it will absolutely fucking kick your ass. And you have these times where you think you're better, you're doing okay, and then it will just come and like
ruin
whack
everything.
you down again. So I think one of the best things I learned from that, which I said before, is the bad times will pass and the good times will pass. And it's like, when you're in the good times, appreciate them because they may never be here again.
Yeah.
And in the bad times, stick to it and just know that you will get through.
It's going to pass.
Yeah.
Shame that you had to learn that at such a young age though.
Well, you know, I think I'm at the point in my life now, like it was the anniversary of my dad's death like only a couple of weeks ago, and it's been like 26 years.
Wow.
And I said to my mum, you know, it's Dad's anniversary today, and she was like, how long's that been? I was like, 26 years. She's like, what the hell? She was like, it feels like yesterday.
Yeah.
Like it still hurts like yesterday.
Yeah, I could imagine.
And I was like, yeah. And I was like, I thought I'd be like over it by now. And she was like, no, it stays with you. I think you learn that grief walks with you everywhere.
Yeah.
It doesn't always feel like it's the weight on your shoulders.
Yep.
But it's right
It
there.
comes with you.
Yeah. You take it everywhere you go.
Yeah.
But I'm really grateful for all of the lessons that I've learnt over the years in dealing with that. Yes, at times it's completely taken over me, and I've made some really poor choices. But then there's been other times you know, like those decisions that I made to do something with my life, you know, sometimes it's hard to rocket yourself into outer space when you haven't been on the ground before. You know?
Yep.
And you kind of, a lot of people who don't experience that extreme grief, and I'm not saying this for everyone, but you can tend to go on this path, this little linear path with just your little ups and downs, and it's hard to break free of that and think about extremes and push yourself to certain, you know, other heights.
And that's probably a bit of a coping mechanism, I would say, too, and how you're sort of coping with the grief, and you wouldn't want to go to an extreme height, obviously, because you're still grieving, and what if I get upset?
Yeah.
I'm sure it's got some sort of explanation. It's quite in depth, and I'm sure it'll affect everyone differently. But
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So that's sort of how I ended up in my therapist's office.
How did you get to doing therapy? Was that some of the support? When did that kick in?
Yeah, that sort of kicked in. Like I went through a lot of therapists, mainly because I wasn't really prepared to be honest with any of them.
I've heard that's a thing.
Oh my God, it was such a thing. I just remember I just tried to get them all to like me, and then I'm like, oh, you're not any good at your job. Yeah. And then I'd leave.
I've spoken to someone else about going to therapy as well, and he's just like, I literally would just walk in and decide I didn't like him and turn around and leave.
Yeah.
He's like, sometimes they wouldn't even do anything. Yeah. It was just, he just didn't like them, and he didn't want them. And he's like, I just can't even tell you because I'm not going to tell you the truth because I don't like you. And he's like, you just judge them sometimes because
100%. And they know that you're
choosing
them,
who you want to share all this information with. If you don't like the person, you're not going to be open and honest with them. So he literally had gone through so many. He's like, no, you're not the one for me, and he would just leave. Yeah, it's a thing.
Well, that makes
you got to trust
sense.
The people who you're confiding in, and you want to help you, right?
Yeah. But this woman was amazing, and you know, I did a lot of other work. I went to like group therapy sessions and all that kind of stuff. I kind of hid a lot of it from my mum in the beginning. Yeah. Just I don't know, because I kind of felt like I should have been more over it than I was. And, you know, Brihony's just being dramatic, and, oh, God, they're going to have a therapist, and, you know. So, yeah, I kind of hit it, and then I was pretty I was bridesmaid at a friend's wedding, and I'd self-harmed to the point where it would have distracted from the wedding.
Yeah, wow.
And I was really concerned about how I was going to cover it up, and it was the night before the wedding. My mum was there because it was a family friend, and I walked her out to the car because she was going home, and I was like, look, I'm going to tell you something. I just need you to like help me solve this problem right now because I can't think straight and I can't think of how to solve this. Yeah. And I'm like, it's part of a much bigger problem. Yeah. And we can deal with that another time. Yeah. And so resolve. So I told her, and I let it in, and she really helped me out, and you know, we worked out ways to cover and that kind of stuff. And then she just kicked into full super mum mode and helped me, you know, get the help that I needed basically to get me through that phase of my life.
Yeah, well, that's amazing. I'm sorry they had to go through that. It's
me too.
Yeah, I know. It's heavy. It's heavy.
But you know, I'm a better person for it, and I often think about, you know, why do we go through these things? Why have I been put on earth to experience this much fucking pain? Yeah. And I think it's because I'm strong enough to handle it and to go through it, and also then to be able to share and give back to other people who are going through that stuff as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's amazing. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and talk about some of the stuff that you do with the women's AFL. Woo! Very excited. Thank you.
Shift gears with In the Back Seat. Subscribe today for stories that redefine the road to success. Available on all your podcasting platforms.
Welcome back. We're back with Brihony, and we are going to dig deep into the AFL side of things. I'm very interested to see, you've obviously got a little bit of a passion, is that right? Or
I'm passionate about sports in general.
Yeah. And then you're working on a lot of stuff for the women's AFL at the moment. Talk us through that.
I got involved in AFL. I used to play footy, and then I was a bit past my use-by date by the time the AFLW came around, which I was absolutely devastated about. Yeah. And
I'm sure there's a long line of people who are probably the same, to be honest.
There's a lot of us who used to play, in Vic footy around town, and a few went in because they're a bit younger than me, but a few of us were like,
if only.
just missed
I think
out.
you'd make a good footy player too.
Thank you.
You got long legs.
Yeah. And so I was always just, how can I be involved? And then I saw something online during COVID, and it was a women in sports broadcasting course that you could do.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, oh, that sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
That sounds like me. I might get into it that way because I don't know every detail about every sport, but I just really love sport, and I like what you have to do to become an athlete and be an athlete, which you would understand.
Yep.
And so,
and a lot of people think it's so easy.
Oh my God, just it's all in here.
Yeah.
You know, and the mental toughness that you have to keep going.
Yep, definitely.
So I went and did this course, and the two women who created the course, Emma and Lucy Race, they're sisters. I just got along with them so well, and I felt like they'd just been a part of my family forever. And just got lots of great opportunities out of that. I ended up hosting Women's Footy, which was a show on Channel 9 on Sunday mornings. So that was sort of my first gig out of doing the course, which was amazing. And then I got the job on Fox Footy doing boundary riding. And now I'm doing a podcast twice a week for this season with News Corp. It's called AFLW Today.
Yes.
Tune in whenever you find good and bad podcasts. And it's, this year I'm so much more heavily involved in AFLW, and it's like the competition itself has come so far in, sort of like the 9 seasons that it's been around. But just the people in the community, AFLW is about so much more than the sport.
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah, it's really about community and bringing people together and bringing the best out in people.
Yeah, I love that. And have you noticed changes, obviously, from when you sort of first started to now, like you're sort of saying with the community and all of this AFLW and anything sport related that's obviously with the women's side now?
Yeah.
What's that progression been like since your involvement?
It's been slow and tedious.
Okay, that's what I want to hear. Be honest.
There's always progress, and it has been really good, and there has been progress made, just getting women's change room facilities and having it at a level that is fit for elite athletes.
Yeah.
And just changing people's minds and concepts about women in sport. But women in sport, it has 300% growth every year.
Yeah.
If you own a big brand, if you are not invested in women's sport, you're a silly fucking sausage.
Yeah,
okay.
you tell them.
Get in there now while it's cheap.
Yeah.
Because we're seeing it with the Matildas, we're seeing it in AFLW, we're seeing it with the women's NBA. It's
growing.
It's growing because people are, young girls and gender diverse people are being told that they're worth something, they're included, they're being seen, and they're able to get that love of that sport and those people from an early age.
You can do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
It's not just for boys anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you form those attachments when you're young. Barracking for a team or barracking for a certain sport is within you and your family structure from a young age. And if it's only ever just been men's, then that's all you're going to be passionate about. It's going to be hard to pull people out. So in terms of viewership and that kind of stuff, yes, things are growing and more people are getting involved with sport because of that. More people are watching sport because of that. But also there are better professional pathways in place for women and gender diverse people who want to be elite athletes.
Yes.
Whereas, 10 years ago, girls stopped playing footy at an elite level at 13 because they couldn't play with the boys
There was
anymore.
no progression.
Yeah. So now there's those proper pathways, and we're just starting to see players and I can speak particularly about AFLW, that we're seeing players who are just elite. They've been athletes from when they were young, just like the boys have been. And they've been given those opportunities, and you can tell the young players who just have no fear, belief in their body, belief in their skill, and they're incredible to watch.
And there'll be more to come, which is exciting. Yeah.
AFLW in 10 more years, look out.
Yeah, it's very exciting. We should try and figure out how we can get this issue fixed for motorsport, because there's all progression in motorsport. Nothing. It's killing me.
Absolutely nothing.
It's killing me.
Yeah.
I left for 6 years and I came back, fucking nothing changed.
Yeah.
No other girl had raced since me. Nothing, like literally, it was like I never left.
Yeah.
It was copy
It's
paste.
nuts, isn't it?
It's wild. It is so insane.
Because I feel like women would be really well suited to car racing.
Oh, like we can multitask for one.
Right?
We don't fucking break shit.
Skills.
Yeah. But we can also be rude, and we can be bitchy, and we can be aggressive. And I just feel like people, for some reason, motorsport is just so, there is a block up, and it's thick.
Yeah.
It's like, to get through some of these people is, I just honestly, I'm like, they all just need to honestly retire and die for new people to come through.
Yeah.
It's because some people have so much influence in the sport.
Yeah.
It's like they completely need to be gone and no influence whatsoever. And new people need to come in and actually have their influence before anything will change. And when you think about the progression of that, you're like, fuck, it's still another like 20 years away.
It's a long way
away. When you
isn't
actually
it?
think about it.
Yeah.
It's so
Is it a bit
crazy.
pale, male and stale in there?
It's very, very, that's a great way to say it. It is so bad. And it's honestly, you see, it's great for me, obviously, watching all of these other women's leagues come through, and you're like, just a matter of time, hopefully.
Yeah.
But I think motorsport's just so expensive.
Yeah.
That's my only thought, is that it's just so expensive to really invest in something that encourages younger girls to come through.
Yeah.
It's just like, it would be a massive investment.
Yeah, it's
It'd
a
be
huge investment.
Yeah.
My family used to race Formula Vs down at Phillip Island.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I kind of grew up down at Phillip Island, the track down there.
Yep.
Which was just awesome.
Yep, good
But I
track.
remember, like, obviously very small motor in a Formula V.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
it's like one up from a go-kart, isn't
Yeah.
it? And you know, that was expensive.
Yep.
Expensive.
Yeah, it's
so
not
you're
cheap.
like, I can't even imagine.
Yeah, so
what
but
it costs to
it's
get
good
you
for
out there.
someone like myself. I sort of feel like a bit of an outsider sometimes when I see so much support going into women's sport.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like,
Yeah.
we're here, motorsport, we're over here,
Yeah.
hi. But like, it's also great because I feel like there's going to be a couple brands, like kind of like what you just said before. If you're not on board now, you're a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
I feel like those brands are
I
going to
did say silly sausage.
Silly
just in
sausage.
case there are any
Sorry.
sponsors watching this.
Sorry. I think they're idiots. You think they're silly sausages. But it's so true. And I feel like those ones that get involved will change, shift and shape the sports.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like they're going to set examples for other brands. And I feel like sometimes it just takes one brand
Mm-hmm.
for all the others to go, oh, like if they're doing it, we've got to do it. And
Yeah.
then everything can obviously snowball from there, which is
Yeah.
really exciting. But yeah, motorsport's a bit tricky. I feel like I'm definitely on the outskirts and sometimes feel a little bit left out when it's like you see so much energy and support coming in from other people to obviously support women in other sports. So
Yeah.
it's interesting to see how much it's changed because I obviously watch not closely, but close enough to see sponsors and who's being involved and all
Yeah.
of these sorts of things on the side. And I feel like there are probably other sports too that I don't know of and we don't know about that are sort of a little bit left out. But it's
Yeah.
really encouraging to know that there's finally a couple of key sports that are getting the attention that
There's
they need.
movement.
Yeah, which is really exciting.
Yeah.
I want to touch on a few things that you sort of said before with gender diversity.
Yeah.
Are you happy to talk about
Yeah,
that?
great. Let's do
And
it.
let's have a little bit of an educational session,
Please.
more for myself as well, and obviously the listeners. Talk us through exactly what that means.
Bit of gender diversity. So I identify as a non-binary person and my pronouns are they, them.
Yes.
So I was born a she, her.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they call it, I'm not fully down with all the updated terminology. But it's basically like assigned female at birth because I've got a vagina, female, and vice versa. So, yeah, I don't identify as a woman. I did for a really long time. Even saying that now, like me as a woman, feels a bit strange.
Feels funny.
Yeah, I did for ages. And, I came out, as a lesbian when I was about 18.
Okay.
But knew I was forever.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was really, really like I'm a total feminist. So I was like really like strong feminist, lesbian woman.
Yeah.
Loving it.
Yep.
And then I don't even know how it happened. I think I was just, sort of growing as a person and understanding more about myself and, there was other offerings available other than male and female and looking at gender as a spectrum and not, as black and white.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I was actually, I didn't really know what non-binary meant or anything. I didn't know the sort of the terminology behind it. And I was talking to my partner at the time who was sort of like 7-8 years younger than me, so a bit more down with the with the lingo.
Yep.
And I was like, sometimes I just feel like I'm just like a person. I feel like I don't feel like a woman. And I was like, but I don't feel like a man. And I felt like there was only those two options. If I wasn't feeling like a woman, then I needed to be a man.
Yeah, yeah.
And she was like, you're non-binary. And I was like, what the fuck does that mean? And she was like, you don't identify as a man or a woman, you're just like a person. I was like, well, that's me. And she was like, yes.
Yeah, wow.
So once I sort of was able to like lean into that, kind of like the spark that I had when I thought about myself as a singer.
Yeah.
That happened again and I knew I sort of had to listen to that.
Yeah.
And yeah, sort of progressed from there. I had top surgery this year, so I got my boobs chopped off.
Yep.
My chest is looking very good. I've been at the gym.
Yeah, nice.
So yeah, it's been amazing. And there are, in terms of like the educational side of things, it's there is so much diversity within gender diversity as well.
Yeah.
There are trans people, non-binary people, asexual people, like just like agendered, like everything.
Yep.
There's a lot. And as a person who fits in that community, I also don't know every single thing there is about the community.
Yeah. But it's good to admit that, and it's good to know that, and it's good to know that you're open. Like myself personally, I've never met someone who obviously has they them pronouns and somebody who's gender diverse. I haven't had that opportunity.
I'm glad to be your first one.
Thank you, but mainly because of the environment that I'm in.
Yeah.
And honestly, I've actually spoken about this before, that I didn't realize how toxic the environment that I was in was in motorsport until I left.
Yeah.
And I was never against anything, but I just think I never really realized the way people think and the way people portray things, how it affects you in your mind. And it was not that people were always negative, but it was more like, oh, he's a fag.
Yeah.
But no, he's gay and there's nothing wrong with it. You know what I mean? But it was kind of like those.
And that's also not the only thing about him.
Exactly. Yeah. And it wasn't until I left where I realized it was icky for me, where I realized it was wrong, but I didn't know it was wrong until I got out.
But it's about educating yourself, because it's easy to stay in that realm where you like sort of put your head in the sand and you're like, well, I don't know enough about it and I don't want to feel bad or guilty about anything about it. So I'm just not going to learn.
Yeah.
And I think you need to learn. You don't need to like go and study it. You don't need to do like a whole bunch of research. You don't need to go out and get like 800 non-binary and trans friends. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep.
It's just about opening up your mind so that when you do meet someone who's, gender diverse, that you're open and that you're a listener in that situation and you're not doing all the talking. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I think that's sort of like the main important thing about it is that it's being opening and listening. And no, you're not going to get it right all the time. Like I get misgendered all the time, and I used to get I used to get upset about it. I went through a stage, I was like, oh, fucking hell, it's like She-Fest 2023 in here, you know?
Yep.
And then I found that I was actually just upset all the time. And I was like, oh, fuck, well, I can't just be upset all the time. That is not a good way to live. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to choose to let that stuff go. And it's one of the best decisions I ever made because it actually doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
The people who are important to me use my correct pronouns, and if they don't, you know, if they mess it up one day, I'll totally take the piss out of them.
Yeah.
And, you know, we have a bit of a laugh.
Yep.
I think why it's important to learn and use people's correct pronouns generally is because not everyone is like me. Not everyone has had the experience that I have and has come to where I'm at with my gender and how other people perceive it.
Yeah.
There are young people who, you know, queer young people have a 40% higher suicide rate than non-queer people. All right. These kids are fucking killing themselves because they don't feel like they fit in. They're not going to, you know, that's why it's important.
Yeah. It's
that's why we
important to
need
know
people.
there's a bigger issue.
Massive issue.
Than what you think.
Yeah.
If you accidentally, you know, misgender someone,
Yeah.
you don't realize the impact that it has on that particular person.
But also it's not about those those micro incidents. It's about making sure generally in society creating a space where that person feels like they belong. So it's not about giving airtime to these dickheads who are like, oh, fucking you're a man or a woman or this, or getting rid of those posts like comments on social media that talk about use the word bag or this or that. And it's about getting rid of that shit.
Yeah.
So when these kids are scrolling through like social media or whatever, that they're not reading that shit and being like, even though it's not on my post, that's what everyone thinks about trans people, and I'm one of those people and I hate myself because of it.
That was my problem, is that I didn't realise that things like obviously the men that I was around and the way that they would talk about things, I didn't realise it. And I do remember when I sort of opened up my world to I actually had one of my best friends in school, she was gay, she was a lesbian. And I remember she told me that she had a girlfriend. I'm like, 1 second you had a boyfriend, now you got a girlfriend. Why have you got a girlfriend for?
Yeah.
I'm like, what happened to the boyfriend? And she's like, oh, I realised I didn't know what love was until I met her. And I'm like, what do you mean? And she's like, well, I realised that love is love and it's not the what you see.
You don't love a sex, you love a person.
Yeah, it's love you. Yeah, but when she explained it in my head, I was like, no shit. Yeah. I was like, never thought of it like that.
Yeah.
But she didn't know it until
Light bulb.
until it happened. So I was never really closed off to it at all. But I just remember the language and the way people talk about it. I literally thought that was normal until I left, and then I wanted to educate myself. I wanted to talk to people. I had gay friends at work, and it was one of those things where I just remember when I realized that the environment that I was in was actually quite horrible. And I just remember going, oh my God, like now it's like if I hear language like that, and I'm like, ew, ick. I'm like, no. I'm like, don't talk like that or don't say that.
You call it out.
And it's like, it's triggering to me because it's like I let it happen for so long without realizing maybe I've got a bit of like trauma from being so okay with it and actually no one telling me that it wasn't okay. I will never experience that again, and I will also never put someone through that and make them think that that's normal. So that's a bit of like my thing. I think it's just like a personal thing. Yeah. Also being an adult, if there's younger people around or influential people and someone's talking in a way that I don't like, I'd be like, hey, like that's actually not a normal way to talk, or you don't have to share that same opinion.
That's not useful
here.
Yeah.
And it's kind of just letting them know that it's not right, just in case they don't know the difference, because I think that was something that really triggered me. I think knowing that you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, 100%.
Does that make sense? And I feel like that's something that sits like as a core thing for me now.
Yeah.
And it's
what you did in that situation is when you knew better, you did better.
Yeah.
And that's not what a lot of people do.
Because I don't want someone else accidentally to turn around and talk about someone or say something that's wrong and they actually didn't know. Luckily, I was around people, and I'm not going to lie, I probably joked and said things when I was younger because I thought it was normal.
Yeah.
And I would be mortified thank God I never really said it out of place where I could have
Yeah.
got in trouble. But imagine
Yeah.
if I was in a workplace or
Yeah,
something and I made a
100%.
joke and I'm like, oh, look at that. And it could have got me in trouble. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And I just think about that deep down and I'm like, I would never, ever, ever like someone else to be in that position and make a
100%.
mistake and it ruin their job, their career. Lucky I didn't have a job and I sort of when I left motorsport, I was old enough to realise that it was wrong. But yeah, definitely being at a younger influential age, I just find it very
also the
icky.
people who that affects in that situation as well. Imagine if there was a young trans person or a young gay person or lesbian, you know, in that situation, hearing all that stuff as well. You know, it's about protecting them and it's about, as you said, like doing better.
Just knowing what's better. I still think one thing that really irks me and pisses me off is that there's no openly gay people in motorsport in Australia.
Oh, yeah. None in the AFL either.
Yeah, right. And it's just like, who is it? I try to pick it. I'm like, who is it? And why can't you say anything? Like, just be the person who does it.
can't be a fag. They don't want to be the first.
Like,
Do you know
would
what
you
I mean?
not want to be the first, though?
I don't
want to
know.
be the
I don't
first
think
at everything I do.
I think they just want to play footy and not have all that media.
I've heard and seen, and I, as of recent, actually, when I'm just getting the deep dive on the internet, sometimes I was looking into some NASCAR stuff just randomly because I was dreaming about being a NASCAR driver for a day. And there is a gay NASCAR driver,
Is there?
not in the top one, but in the Cup Series, which is like the step below.
Yeah.
And I'm like, interesting that he never gets spoken about and that I've only just kind of discovered it, but maybe he's bigger in America. And I get in these deep dives, like, how come there's no one who's gay in motorsport? And even in AFL, like you say, I'm like, I scan the field and I'm like, I think it would be you. I think it would be you.
You look gay.
Without being rude, but then
Yeah.
in the back of my mind, I'm like, God, like, when is it going to be?
Yeah.
Who is it going to be? How are they going to do it? And I think about it because I'm like, it's as someone who's obviously being the female and the only female, I lead away in like one thing, but I'm like, God damn, like if someone else could take a bit of stress and pressure off me and we can both be doing this together, I have someone else to fight battles with at the same time.
It's better doing it together,
And
isn't
it's just like, why can't we just do it? It's something that I think about actually quite often. And I know that's sad because that would be the next best thing in motorsport, in my opinion, is for people to actually start coming forward and being honest and being open and not caring about what people think. And I think it's like the next step that motorsport in Australia needs to take.
Yeah.
I always used to say when I got slammed in motorsport too, and this may sound really horrible, but when I was getting picked on and when I used to be getting slammed in the media, death threats and everything, and I always used to say, I'm like, what if I was gay? Because they couldn't even deal with the fact that I was a female racer, let alone if I was gay. I'm like, what if I was a lesbian? What would you guys do then? You would have a field day. Like you would literally rip me to shreds. And it's sad that that has to be the case.
Oh, yeah. Visibility is really important for people like me to be in the public eye, for other queer people to be in the public eye, because I didn't have anyone like me growing up.
Yeah.
And I felt a lot of shame about that, even as an adult and coming out as non-binary and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I still, definitely felt a lot of shame around it. And so having good role models and people who show courage to come out, and also you don't need to show courage to come out if you run your own race and do your own thing. But having a role model, I think, is really important in those situations.
Absolutely. And you know something that I sort of want to say and resonate with too is when I was racing, I remember people would say that I was a boy all the time because I was doing a boy sport.
Oh, God.
Isn't that funny?
I mean, how boring.
Yeah, like you have to do because you're doing something that's a boy sport.
Yeah.
Oh, you must be a man then.
Yeah.
I used to get that all the time.
Yeah, I must be a man.
And you know, sometimes
Look
I used
at
to
my
think,
big dick.
I'm like, maybe I was meant to be a boy. And I always used to think about this.
you?
Yeah. And I'm like, maybe I used to be a boy. And then I remember I went on a deep dive because I found out that people can have the XY
Oh, yeah,
gene.
yeah.
And I was convinced I had that for a few years.
Did you get a test?
No, but I probably should. Because honestly, it was something that sat in the back of my mind. I'm like, maybe just like everything male got sprinkled in me and then it was just bang, I came out with tits and pussy. And I always used to think that I was a boy. So I fully understand what you say when you're like, you have like this misunderstanding of where you should sit in gender.
Well, because it's it's not, for me, it's not a misunderstanding. It's a spectrum.
Yeah, it's a
right?
spectrum, yeah.
And so it's not male and female.
Yeah.
It's masculine and feminine.
Yeah.
And so you can sit wherever you want on that spectrum whenever you want. There are some days where I feel like super hyper masculine. And my partner will be like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I don't know. I'm just having like a fucking day."
Yeah.
You know. But
honestly,
then,
same.
Yeah. But
I
then,
get like that.
But then there are other times where I feel, super feminine.
I don't have those days.
You don't.
No.
You don't have those days.
No.
So it's just, and I think if everyone can think about that for themselves, like most people, when they hear me talk about that, they will reflect on it just as you did and be like,
it's so true.
Gender is a spectrum.
Because honest, for someone like myself, what I'm trying to say is that I can fully relate to it, but I guess I've never actually thought about it more in depth to the point where it affected me, purely because I was probably in an environment where I was forced for it not to affect me.
Yeah.
But I've always been leaning on more of the masculine side and never on the feminine side, like ever. Like if I have to do anything feminine, I just like a little.
You're like nah.
It's not for me. It's so uncomfortable.
The nails are okay though.
The nails are okay. Yeah. Okay. Is that feminine? Yeah, I guess so. But dress, look nice.
Yeah.
I think the only reason I do this now is because I got forced to think that having long hair, having nails, wearing makeup, and it had to be pretty because I needed to be sellable, and that's like a background issue that's probably indented in me from management and people telling me I had to look a certain way and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I could tell you honestly right now, I don't think I've ever fit in the super feminine female side of gender ever.
But you can still very strongly identify as a woman and feel very masculine.
Yeah.
And I think that it's
I think that's
just,
me.
Yeah.
I think that's me.
And there, as I said, there are days where I just go between the two, but I know that I never feel like a woman and I never feel like a man.
Yeah.
And I'm just a human being. I'm just,
No, I really
a sack of skin with some bones like the rest of everyone else,
Good looking sack of skin.
Good looking sack of skin. Yes. I'm putting that in my bio from now on.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I do actually want to ask you one more thing.
Yes.
Two more things.
Okay.
What's next for you?
I've started a couple of businesses this year.
Yeah.
So
can you tell us, or is it?
Oh, no. Yes, I can.
Okay,
I've started an entertainment talent agency. So yeah, that's been a big focus of mine, getting that up. I've got a business partner who I work with, and we've just hired someone. And so yeah, it's been a really big
fun,
big build up. Yeah, a lot of fun, a lot of work. Holy shit, I don't know if I would have done it if I if I knew it was this much. No, I definitely would have.
Yeah.
And yeah, hopefully going to start another business in a month or so to sort of support that one and just managing artists and that kind of thing. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, it's good.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
Lots going on.
Yeah.
Next question, last question.
Yes.
Any advice you would give to anybody listening?
I learnt recently, I heard it said somewhere that the most successful people, let me get this right, the most successful people are the ones who are unrealistically optimistic.
I like that.
And I'm like, oh my God, that's me. Like, I think I can do anything.
Yeah, same.
And so when I pull all my resources and I action them, oh my God, I can actually do anything. And there's nothing in there that tells me, no, you're not good enough, you can't do this, like nothing.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, be unrealistically optimistic about the things that you want to do, because no matter how many no's you get, you're one yes away from achieving everything that you want.
Yeah, I love that. Good mindset.
Yes.
Great mindset.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Really appreciate
It's
it.
been
Great
awesome.
chat. Yes, thank you
you
so much. We're going to come back though and we're going to do In the Front Seat.
Yep.
It's very exciting.
Oh,
We're going to
great.
do some rapid fire questions, so you'll have to come back soon. Thank you.
Done.
Make sure you sort out your downloads and subscriptions to In the Backseat podcast, because this Friday, as you know, we'll be dropping another episode of In the Front Seat with Renee Gracie.